What if you were given a second chance at life? Not as yourself, not with your memories, but inside the body of someone who had already decided that life wasn't worth living. That's the premise of Colorful, a movie that on the surface may look like a simple coming-of-age drama, but underneath is one of the most honest explorations of depression, regret, and self-worth I've ever seen in an anime. And at the start, we are introduced to a soul who is in what appears to be some form of limbo or purgatory, when they are greeted with the rare opportunity, a second chance. The catch is that they aren't going to be returning to their own life. Instead, they're placed in the body of a 14-year-old boy named Makoto Kobayashi, who has recently taken his own life. And from here, they are given the goal to remember the great sin they committed in their own previous life. But to survive, it must first navigate the wreckage of Makoto's life before they run out of time. This is an interesting setup for the film. It isn't just asking who the soul used to be, it's also asking why Makoto chose to give up on life in the first place. And as the movie unfolds, both mysteries become deeply intertwined. And something I love about this film is how the movie uses the mystery to explore the other characters, and at the center of said mystery is Makoto. As the soul begins living in his body, it slowly uncovers the life he had left behind. His strained relationship with his family, the pressure he feels from school, the isolation, the disappointments, and the countless of small moments that gradually pushed him towards the breaking point that led the soul to where they are now. What makes Colorful stand out is how realistic these struggles feel. There isn't any major villain, no grand tragedy, and no one moment that explains everything. Instead, the film presents something far more uncomfortable. The ideal that people can be crushed by the weight of so many problems piling up over time. And that's what makes Makoto feel so human, because for many people, pain doesn't come from one catastrophic event. It comes from feeling misunderstood, disconnected, and alone for so long that it becomes difficult to imagine things ever getting better. And that's where Colorful truly shines, not in the mystery, but in the way that it portrays the people surrounding Makoto. Take Makoto's mother, for example. Throughout much of the film, Makoto views her through the lens of disappointment and resentment. To him, she's someone who has failed as a parent and betrayed the trust of her family. And while the movie never asks us to ignore her mistakes, it refuses to reduce her to them. Instead, we're shown someone who is deeply flawed, deeply human, and carrying her own regrets. It's one of the first moments where Colorful begins challenging both Makoto and the audience to look beyond first impressions. And that idea continues with Hiroka. Despite what Porta tells Makoto at the beginning of the film, at first, Hiroka appears to have everything figured out. She seems popular, confident, and admired by the people around her. And if it wasn't obvious, dude is mad crushing on her. But the more Makoto learns about her, the more he realizes that image is not the full story. Behind that surface is someone carrying pain that most people never notice. Someone like Makoto is struggling in a way she does not openly show. And then there's Shoko, one of the film's most endearing characters. Her awkward personality and relentless attempts to spend time with Makoto initially makes her an annoyance in his eyes, but as he slowly opens himself up to others, he begins to recognize the sincerity behind her actions. In many ways, Shoko doesn't change. Makoto does. His growing appreciation for her reflects one of the film's central ideas, that as we begin to heal, we're able to see the people around us with far more compassion than we once could. But Colorful also understands that healing isn't a straight line. Growth doesn't erase our flaws overnight, nor does it stop us from making mistakes. Just because Makoto is beginning to see the world differently doesn't mean he suddenly becomes the person he wants to be. Which is why one particular scene in the film has always stuck with me. When Makoto pushes Shoko onto the bed, I remember feeling genuinely frustrated watching it. It felt uncomfortable and it felt wrong. And that's exactly the point, because by this stage of the story, which is right before his growth as a person, it's easy to start viewing Makoto as someone we're supposed to root for unconditionally. Even when he struggles, we've seen his pain, we've come to understand why he's hurting. But Colorful refuses to let him become the perfect victim. Makoto is suffering, yes, but he's also flawed. He's immature, he's angry, he's confused, and at times he hurts the people around him. The film constantly reminds us that understanding someone's pain doesn't automatically justify their actions. Instead, it asks us to confront something much more complicated. Good people can make bad decisions. People who are hurting can hurt others. And growth only becomes possible when we are willing to acknowledge the flaws instead of pretending they don't exist. And that's what makes Makoto such a compelling protagonist. He's not a hero and he's not a villain. He's just a person trying to navigate emotions he doesn't fully understand. And what also makes Makoto such a compelling protagonist is that his greatest obstacle isn't just his family, classmates, or even the circumstances of his life, it's the way he sees himself. Throughout much of the film, Makoto views the world through a lens of hopelessness. Every disappointment feels permanent, every mistake feels defining, every relationship feels broken beyond repair. And because of that, he becomes trapped inside his own perspective. The more pain he experiences, the more convinced he's become that nobody truly understands him. What's fascinating is that Colorful never portrays this as a weakness. Instead, it presents it as something painfully human. When we're hurting, it's easy to believe that we're all alone. It's easy to assume that nobody else could possibly understand what we're going through. But as Makoto begins learning more about the people around him, he slowly discovers something that changes everything. He's not the only one struggling. He's not the only one carrying regrets. He's not the only one trying to make sense of a complicated life. But what truly elevates Colorful beyond a simple coming-of-age story is his understanding of depression. One of the things that stuck the most while we watching this film is how realistic it feels. Not because every viewer will relate to Makoto's exact situation, but because of how the movie portrays the gradual weight of emotional pain. Many stories try to explain depression through a single event, a tragedy, a loss, a traumatic experience, or trim it down to its most simplest form. And while those things can absolutely play a role, Colorful takes a different approach. Makoto isn't suffering because of one moment. He's suffering because of countless moments, disappointment, loneliness, resentment. You get the idea. On their own, these problems might seem manageable, but together they become overwhelming. And that's what the film understands so well. Depression doesn't always arrive all at once. Sometimes it builds up quietly, little by little, until eventually the weight becomes too much to carry. What's even more powerful is that Colorful never treats Makoto's feelings as irrational. The film doesn't mock him, it doesn't tell him to simply get over it. Instead, it asks you, the audience, to understand why someone in his position might begin to lose hope. And in doing so, it creates something far more meaningful than sympathy. It creates empathy. And that's exactly why I think the title of Colorful is so important. For most of the film, Makoto sees the world in extremes. People are either against him or they aren't. Life is either worth living or it isn't. He's so consumed by his own pain that he struggles to see anything beyond it. But as the story progresses, that view begins to change. The more he learns about the people around him, the more he realizes that nobody's life is as black and white as it appears. And near the end of the film, Makoto comes to the realization that perfectly encapsulates everything Colorful has been trying to say.
People are not just monochromatic. They all have so many colors to them. It's fine to have many beautiful colors. For a long time, I didn't know my true colors and was at a loss.
And that's exactly what Makoto learns throughout the story. His mother isn't just a bad parent, and Hiroka isn't just the popular girl, and Makoto's older brother, Mitsuru, isn't just the perfect son. And more importantly, Makoto himself isn't simply a victim of circumstance. Every person in the story is complicated. All of their lives are more complicated than they first appeared. Every person is carrying their own regrets, fears, mistakes, and hopes. People are messy. Relationships are messy. Life is messy, and maybe that's what makes it beautiful. And that's what I believe the title is trying to convey. Life isn't made up of a single emotion. It's not just happiness, only emotional sadness, and only pain. It's all of those things at once. Messy, complicated, contradictory, colorful. Life isn't suddenly easy once you understand other people. It's that life becomes richer when you realize there's more to it than your own suffering. The same world that contains disappointment can also contain connection. The same world that contains regret also contains forgiveness. That same life can feel unbearable one day and can surprise you the next. And by the end of the film, That's the lesson Makoto finally begins to understand. Not that his problems have disappeared, not that the world has become perfect all of a sudden, but that life contains far more colors than he was able to see before. And years after watching Colorful, that lesson stayed with me. Not the mystery or the twist, but the reminder that every person has a story we can't fully see, and that life is rarely as simple as it seems. And you just being who you are can make a massive impact on people's lives, way greater than you can ever imagine. That's why Colorful hits so hard, because beneath its supernatural premise is a deeply real and deeply human message. One that's just as relevant today as it was when the film released. Thank you all for watching. If you've seen Colorful, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below, and if you haven't, I'd love to hear your thoughts regardless. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That really helps out the channel. Until next time, I've been Oriyame, and I'll see you in the next video.